Hey, shalom everyone. Good morning for well, you're going to be watching this later on, but good morning to me. And I'm near Tzomet Re'im. We decided to stop here for a moment. And we saw some barley here, so I decided to kind of stop and look. Not a big surprise. Most of the barley here is in very early stages. I mean, you can even see like some oats as well, but most of the barley is still in the boot. There's one head over there, and here I have an assistant helping me. This is what the barley looks like right now. Let me just put that there. Still learning how to work this thing. This is how most of the barley is looking. I mean, there's some heads. Actually, no, this is not barley. No, this is barley. And this is what it mostly looks like. And there are flowers here, but very importantly, we're already in a belt here. We're in a belt here. Usually, the barley should be much more advanced. Obviously, I'm being very careful with this area because this is near trees, and trees can create anomalies. Very important thing to remember. Trees create anomalies, and they suck up liquids and so on, and it's a problem. I'm going to take the camera off for a second, so we need to see better what's going on here. Okay. You have flowers over there, lots and lots of flowers. Beautiful growth here. This is usually every year there's a thing called Delgama, where people celebrate the flowers that grow here. But even next to the trees sometimes cause some browning and so on. But as you can see, everything is very, very, very young, very young, and we saw some heads. We saw some heads over in another location, and as we were driving towards this area, we noticed that the barley is very erratic. And I didn't mention where I am. So this is Chenyon Tzomet Re'im. There's Tzomet Re'im, which is a field that we're going to get to later. I'll just splice up all the videos together, and you'll be able to see the everything together as one long video. But when you reach this area and you don't really see any barley, then chances are you will not see barley. Meaning you won't see barley reaching a point where it's actually usable. So, but the field here is just absolutely gorgeous. And I don't even know if the video is capturing how beautiful this field is. Just absolutely gorgeous, absolutely gorgeous. I mean, I got a weird feeling I shouldn't be trotting here at all, but I didn't see a sign saying I'm not allowed to. Says don't step on the kalaniot. Okay, don't step on the flowers, but you are allowed to walk around here apparently. And I'm going to just let you see as I'm progressing. And there's a batch over there. But this is just a gorgeous morning. I mean, it's chilly, but this is the south, so it's a lot more sunny here. When I was leaving home the other day, it was just felt like it was about to rain. So, but rain's going to come back again. So that's another very important thing. Having a very good winter, and it's a bit of a rainy season. We're still in the rainy season, and here, for example, here's a really, really important thing. So, for example, you see this, right? You see this from afar. You say, hey, look, green ears. This is completely empty. There's nothing in it. And you can see here, touch the camera again, you can see here, for example, some coloring as well. But even when you have a head, it's nothing. And we will get eventually to other locations, but right now, I mean, we're in the area where usually, look, a little snail. This is an area, again, I'm being very careful again, not to get too close to the trees, but this is only just a little bit more advanced than up north. And as we progress here in the south, I think we'll see a lot more. This area is always warmer, but I think that we're already kind of seeing a bit of a consistency, because as we were driving by, we went a detour and went around, and we kept on seeing the same thing. Very erratic areas where the barley is just either in the boot or you see a little head. And as of now, seeing what we've seen so far, we're still well behind. I mean, this barley is weeks behind even getting close to Aviv. So again, this was Chenyon, it's a parking area for Tzomet Re'im, and we'll get to Tzomet Re'im itself a little later. Problem with Tzomet Re'im is, again, trees that can cause trouble, and also there's a Bedouin camp there, so maybe the sheep have eaten everything. So, hopefully they haven't, but it can happen. So this is video number 1. Hope you enjoyed this. Okay, next section. I'm at Tzomet Re'im. You can actually see Delgama just over there. We'll get to there later on. I'll explain the issues with Delgama. Most of this area is planted with wheat. These are all cultivated wheat. We've actually been having discussions in the car about the issue of using wild barley. I actually did make a mistake in one of my videos that I did at home, where I said that what we have here is not wild barley, but then I was corrected that the difference between wild barley and cultivated barley is that wild barley is much more brittle. Actually sat down last night going through very detailed descriptions of all different types of grains. And this area, we came here because it goes like this. So Tzomet Re'im is a great location to look at barley. And the problem is that there's not problem, but there's a Bedouin family that lives on the other side. So there's a 2 sections. This is a creek in between. You can see the Bedouin family over there, the tents over there, and their sheep go through everything and eat everything. So we decided to go on this side because, first of all, on that side, I think more north, let me see, the sun's over there. So that's starting to move towards west. This is like north, it's like north east, I want to say. So we were kind of concerned that maybe they ate everything, went through, and there was nothing there. But as you can see, the sections where there is barley, so I'm going to get closer a little bit. Some of this is oats, some of this is barley. As you can see, very young. I mean, this is very, very, very clear. I mean, if we don't find barley here, then chances are you're not going to find barley anywhere. This is the belt. This is literally the belt that makes everything ready before every other place. So I'm going to do that. As you can see, again, what you do is you look at the barley. Okay. Now this is very, very young, and you don't want to take too much out because you want to leave for other people who are going to search. As you can see, there are heads here. Okay. And I'm just going to make sure you can actually see it. And you open up the barley just to see what's going on. First of all, you can squeeze it, and this is actually quite empty. There might be something small inside. It's one of the things I want to check. No, absolutely empty. Not even maybe worm stage. It's different names, but this is the barley that we have here, and it's extremely young. Now, it's very important to make sure several things when you do an Aviv search. First of all, don't destroy people's fields. It is not appropriate to do so. There were concerns that came out throughout the years. We walked through people's fields, and we were very worried about, at least I was very worried about, you can see there's more here. Again, these are empty. But I was very concerned about destroying people's fields, and unfortunately, when people do searches, we have seen places we could see people trotted and so on. So, for example, if you come to Israel and you want to do an Aviv search, and by all means do, it's always good to see lots of people doing these things. It is important to remember that these fields belong to people, so you have to be very, very careful. Now, here's a really interesting thing. You can see here, first of all, this is a very common plant that kind of grows here. You can actually eat this. I have eaten this before. Some people call it like wild lettuce or something. It's not really lettuce, but you can eat this stuff. When I was in the army and we were having trouble with vegetables, we actually would cut these up and eat them. As you can see, more barley, very, very young. Okay, very, very young barley, doesn't really give you anything. And I just want to point out, like, for example, you'll see like a head of barley that's bent, you know, like that one. It doesn't tell you anything. It doesn't show you anything. It doesn't tell you anything. And you have to be very careful with it. If you do a drive-by, just to see fields, like we do sometimes, because you have to decide where you go and where you don't go. Here's another one. You know, you see from a distance, oh, look, green ears. Nothing. It's empty. It's absolutely empty. And I'm actually kind of shocked how little barley we're actually seeing. And, you know, everything here, I mean, I have to be careful. Some of this is wheat, some of this is barley. But really, in truth, you just go around here and the point is to walk around. Now, I have to be very careful when I step here. This is already a planted section. You cannot, by no standard, should you step into people's wheat fields. Not appropriate. This is people's livelihood. But as I walk around here and I'm just seeing some barley, you can see barley in lots of different stages here. You can see barley, like, for example, it's just starting to come out. You can see barley with a head. You can see barley still in the boot. This is something we've noticed consistently while driving around this area and realizing that there's an inconsistency, basically, where the barley is in lots of different stages. Here's an interesting thing. These are actually tares. And tares they confuse people. People see, like, oh, look, tares. Now, they think they see barley, but they grow next to the barley, and they look like barley from a distance. Okay, so I'm just going to show you here. This is kind of like the very small quantities of barley we're seeing here, but everything is super young. By the way, driving down in the south, it is called the Wild South for a reason. If you watch the video I did on driving up north when I was crossing the road, very, very common for people to honk their horns and drive very, very dangerously. So in the south, it's even worse. There's a big issue here in the south, but it looks like as if most of this area is actually planted with wheat. The wheat is obviously even more behind because wheat is always harvested about 2 months, depends which system you use, modern systems, ancient systems. It's essentially the beginning of wheat harvest here in Israel usually happens in May, but the real harvest really starts in like June. The May harvest is usually for animal feed. But as you can see, let me also go here. As you can see, again, there's tares here. And if this, I'm going to say this is barley, but this is look how tiny. This is like a 2-row barley. I think, yeah, it's a 2-row barley. No one plants 2-row, by the way, because there's almost no seed in it. So usually you plant 6-row, but everything is just super young. Now, for me, this is not a surprise because when you do this for a very long time, you start getting a feel for things. Except for 1 year, I think it was 2019, we didn't find anything, and then it's one field that unfortunately no longer exists. Oh, it must have been 2018, not 2019. 2018, I think it was. There was this one field that we found. There was plenty of Aviv there, but we almost missed that field. Almost missed it. It was just a big surprise to us. Okay, and I just want to make sure you can see everything. You can see my finger there. There's oats. Oats usually come out a bit earlier, but really, in truth, there's barley, but it's all very young. And what's going to happen? We're going to go Delgama. I'll explain about what Delgama is, but we've been there many, many times, and it is like one of the markers. Now, even if you say it's not a field, you can't trust it, there's too many anomalies, I understand that. I actually have questioned some of the practices using Delgama, which is just over there. You can see the tail over there. Get my hand in the right place over there. But we'll get to it, and you'll see what goes on there. It's a tail. Look, it's unnatural and so on. I've heard the arguments, but and yes, I have issues with like the fact that there's basins and so on. There have been years where we kind of based ourselves on Delgama. I've had second thoughts about it, but I haven't decided to completely disqualify Delgama yet. I need to hear slightly more convincing arguments. But as you can see, I mean, even if there's a lot of grass here, but really just nothing. It's all pretty much the same. Now we might have some surprises at Jordan Valley, but so far this area has yielded absolutely nothing. Okay, hope you're enjoying these videos, and see you. Okay, so I forgot about this location. It's on the other side of the road, so we'll get Delgama a little bit later. This area again, sorry about that. Again, very early. I mean, this area can become like deep. I mean, we've had years that we walked through here, and it was absolutely deep barley. You just walked in, and if you weren't tall enough, it would vanish. We had a funny situation here where people walked in, and we had no idea where they were. And again, so going back to the barley here, again, same situation, not surprising. You can see barley that's kind of like tilting, right? But there's actually nothing in them. Now, I have to point out, by the way, I'm segmenting what I'm doing here. It's very important to point out that I can't cover every single thing. So what I do first is I'll check the barley before I film, and then make the film itself. So again, there's not a lot of barley here, but this is a proper field. Most of this area is used for wheat. Wheat is usually a darker green and more firm in its structure. And the wild barley is much more fragile, and it's usually thinner. And again, if we do find anything inside, I'll take pictures of it, but there really is nothing. Usually when there's even close to Aviv, it's slightly more plump. There's something inside. You kind of get an idea of that there's something inside. And another interesting thing is that when you see this barley from a distance, the sun reflects off of the structure, and it looks as if it's yellow. But when you actually come close, you notice it's green. But this is a barley field, a real barley. This is like, I would say, an unequivocal barley field. Hopefully, we'll return here in a couple of weeks. The plan is to do like a second search, and this is going to be way bigger, way higher. But right now, as you can see, this is mostly grass. This is still in the stage where it's building up its stalk, and really nothing inside. And I'm going to say this already from now. If this is the state here, then there is no doubt that there's no Aviv. I really have no question about it. After years and years of experience and checking and seeing and learning from different people, you can't even ask a question. I mean, seriously, look at this. This is all in the boot, and every once in a while you'll see something that already has a head coming out. And but this is like most of this is in the first stages. These are in the secondary, actually mostly secondary stages of growth. Now, yes, there are people who use like Zadok scales and keeper scales and so on. And it's misused, by the way. People use the numbers incorrectly and so on. Actually, so the real charts that they're used for. And this is without a doubt, and this is supposed to be like usually the most advanced area in the entire country. And there is nothing, just nothing, period. Okay, we'll carry on. We'll go to Delgama just to look around a little bit more. But I think that through the driving around that we've done here and the things we've seen in the main fields, the other side of the road here, which is a very important site as well. We were there a moment ago. Now we're on the other side. Not big surprise that there's no difference. There's just a road in between them. And this is a big, as I said, this is a big surprise in the Jordan Valley, which usually never happens. We had one time, I think, only one time as far as I remember. I can say with quite a lot of confidence that there's no Aviv this year. Okay, so one more thing. I'm trying to make this as clear as possible. I can't really see this, but this is the most advanced barley we could find. And it is basically what we call a worm stage. So we can really get it close, and no, it's trying to focus on the background. There's not much I can do about that, but basically this grain is in what we call the worm stage, which means that there's just a little itty bitty little thing inside. Not much going on. Literally, like you pull this thing out, it's all wet, it's nothing, it mushes in your hand. And this is the most advanced barley I've seen so far. It's a nothing, really. There's nothing in it. So yeah, we went around. We decided to kind of pick up a little bit and see what's going on. And yeah, at least down here in the Negev, I'm going to openly say there's nothing. Okay, onwards to the next place. Okay, the notorious and infamous and famous Delgama, a site that goes all the way back into the Chalcolithic era, 4th millennia BCE, was settled for many, 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 many years. And the site itself was in use until the Hellenistic era. Everyone sat here. Canaanites, Philistines, Assyrians, Hellenes. I don't know if Edomites were here to check the ceramics and so on. There's ceramics thrown all over this place. And this is a site that, as I said earlier, there's some debate about this site. Some have raised some very interesting questions about it. For those who don't know, a tel is a unnatural hill that's built over many centuries where people just build housing. Instead of removing the old housing, they just build on top of it, and on top of it, and then you end up with a man-made hill. And we've already examined the barley here, the most advanced barley that we know of, and it's the same situation. Barley is in different stages. Actually, I thought earlier I called it the kefir. I meant ficus. chart. There's the Zadok chart and the Ficus chart, but this is some stuff for, these are terminology for farmers. It doesn't really tell us anything as individuals. And there are many stages here, but you can see lots of heads. This is, I would say this is the most advanced area there is. And yet you see this from afar and you say, look, there are green ears, and some of it's even tilted. I will say the following. We know that there were people here. First of all, thank God they didn't graze here. There was one year, years ago, we got a whole herd grazing through the area, and they destroyed everything. People, by the way, people riding bicycles here. There's kids everywhere. It takes a moment to actually find some peace and quiet to do a video. But again, the barley here is in the exact same stage. Everything's empty. You pick one up. You don't even have to open it up. You just press on it and you can feel this is watery. There are different names to the stages. I used the term worm earlier, but you can also use the term flowering. This is when the seed is forming, but it's weeks out. What's beautiful right now is that everything is green. So this is a good sign because it shows us that there's been plenty of rain. Now, to be clear, from the forecasts, it's going to rain more in the upcoming week, which means that, you know, chances are you won't find Aviv in the next couple of weeks, but I will note that things can change very rapidly as you progress in the year, and you can see all the beautiful flowers here as well. But pretty much everything is the same now. I was all the way over there earlier, and now I'm on the other side. And there's this amazing basin here as well that I love going into. And again, everything, you can see heads, but there's not really anything going on. Now, the heat wave comes in, then sure, you might actually find Aviv here in like 2 weeks. The new moon is going to be this weekend. Some of you might ask, so why did I go out on Tuesday? Today is the 1st of March. And usually we try to do it as close as we can to the new moon. But because we already did some preliminary searches, we know that, you know, even if I go out on Wednesday or Thursday or even Friday, it is going to matter absolutely nothing. It's not going to change anything. Okay? Very important to point this out. It will not change anything. Especially if you know it's going to rain, and especially if you know that things are not going to, there's not going to be a massive heat wave or anything like that. And also, it's very important to point out, white barley is an indicator. Okay, it's just mostly an indicator. There was this question that came up years ago about, you know, for years we said, you know, you have to look for, you know, wild barley and so on. Problem with wild barley is it's brittle, and when it goes dry, you can't harvest it. Cultivated barley has a stronger stem, and therefore you can harvest it. So why do we look at wild barley? It's an indicator. It gives us insight to what's going to happen soon. And that's really the important part. What's going to happen soon is that in a couple of weeks, if people do cultivate barley and people do harvest it, it will be ready in a couple of weeks. So wild barley is really cool, but we also have to remember, wild barley is a very good indicator, but at the end of the day, the Aviv, the sheaf, the almond was bought from cultivated barley. And the idea of looking at wild barley just gives us as I said, an indicator. It gives us like a direction what's going to happen. But farmers in the ancient world, like farmers today, would have to work their fields and maybe even sometimes water and things like that. So it's very important to not forget that your barley needs to be something that people would eat, something that was usable for an offering. All offerings, menachot, all the grain offerings were brought from things human beings ate, not from things that we had to find in the wild. You know, it's this interesting question, like, why don't we bring sacrifices from gazelles and wild animals and so on? Because it's not part of our everyday life. You may hunt a gazelle every once in a while. You may hunt wild birds every once in a while. But for example, you use a tzipor dro, which is a wild bird, and tzipor dro is not given as a sacrifice. It's only used for one ceremony, which is for the lepers, the taharat ha-metzora, the purification of the leper, and that's it. There's one question that does exist about the Joshua's altar at Har Eval, at Mount Eval, which has to do with the fact that they did find bones of an animal called yachmur, which is a type of wild gazelle. But that's an abnormality. We don't really know how come they're there. There's different theories. But at the end of the day, if you want to bring an offering, usually, almost actually exclusively, would be done from animals that you would have on your farm, animals that you would eat, and not things you have to run around looking for them. So for sure, I mean, people in the ancient world would use barley more frequently because barley is a much more sustainable grain. It's a sure bet. It will grow no matter what. This is why barley grows everywhere. You can see some birds. But here, from experience, years of experience, you learn to realize that if you don't find in this area, chances are you won't find anywhere. Regardless of the debate, if you know if you can actually trust a man-made tail or not, we have to remember that a field is also technically man-made. Human beings need to interfere in fields to allow the fields to actually grow. So, you know, a field is man-made as well. But this is the most advanced barley we've seen. It's also the largest amount that I've seen so far in any area where there's a lot of barley. But again, multiple stages, multiple stages, from boot to growing the stems to actually producing heads. But at the end of the day, the heads are empty, absolutely empty. I mean, I would say, for example, if I found like some kind of grain inside, maybe like a week it'll be ready. But this is weeks out, literally weeks out. But also, for those who keep on saying, Israel is a desert, this is the Negev. Okay, the Negev is very green during winter. Eventually, after spring, it all turns yellow. But it is important to point out that not the entire land is a desert. It depends where. It depends when. And yes, if you go more south than here, then yes, it will become desert. You go into the central and southern Negev, desert, for sure. Okay? But it's green. This is beautiful. Been walking around here for hours, and it's just beautiful out here. But so far, no Aviv, not even close. Not even if you pray about it really, really, really hard. I'm not being sarcastic or funny to anyone, but usually this is a sure bet, this area. And there was a year, I think, you know, I kind of went on a limb, partially on a limb, and said, you know, there's like a space here in one of the basins, and it faces the sun very nicely. And there was like a space there, so that can be enough as a field. We're slightly debating the subject of what a field is, how big a field is, and so on. But in overall, with a field or without a field, I can say there's nothing here. So the next step should be going to the Jordan Valley. And so that's a bit of a drive. If we see anything on the way, we'll stop and we'll check it. And we'll see what happens. Till then, signing off. Okay, second day of the journey, and we have, we're at basically just across the road from Mechola. And to tell the truth, what road is this? That's a good question. Let's put the road sign for a second. This is the 508. Okay, leading towards Bet Shean. We found a beautiful patch here. There's a whole bunch here, already in a head stage, beyond the jointing and so on. I think the nicest patch that we found is just over here. There's something that can be considered a small field. As you can see, this is in different stages. You have little, and it grows and grows and grows. However, like in other places, we're still very early stages, but we were very happy to find this. This is a very good learning opportunity, because it shows you that, you know, even though the south is usually warmer, there can be different things that can affect this, and there's some really beautiful examples over here. And this goes on for a while, but I shouldn't exaggerate standing on the road. But again, when you see this from the outside, it's misleading. You'll open them up, and I did, and I got stills of it, and inside, not even water stage, nothing. It's, you open them up, and there's like a tiny little thing there, basically flowering. But it is, again, another beautiful morning. We just came out from Samaria on the Eastern Road 505. Everything there was tilling or small places we can see some jointing, but nothing serious. I'd say this is the most serious we've seen so far, and we drove for miles. So I'm waiting to see what happens in the more northern sections of the Jordan Valley. But it's absolutely gorgeous here. I took stills along the road as well, and I'll post them, but just beautiful. Okay, so welcome to the field for us. And this field is this is really a field. This is unlike everything we've seen so far. This is a field, and not, you know, just patches and so on. So it's very important to look and actually know where things grow and so on. And we already walked through here. There's no need to stop picking stuff up and so on. First of all, there are there's two types of barley here. That's number one. Number two, some of the barley's fallen over, but it doesn't mean there's anything inside it. Like, for example, you can see here, it's possible someone walked through here, but when you do footsteps, they actually look more like this. Okay? There's a game with the light as well. It makes you think it's all yellow. It's actually very green. There's an old structure here that we keep on remembering how to find the location. Border fence, Jordan on the other side. We actually taught the Jordanians how to cultivate this area, at least from what I read. And in truth, went through here, we picked some up. There are sporadic cases of what we would call soft dough, which is when you press on it, it squirts out. Most of this is empty. Okay, most of what you see here is empty, both the 2-row and the 6-row that we found here. I think we said found 6-row. But this is the most substantial amount of barley in the head stage that we've seen. We drove all the way from, we drove through Samaria into the Jordan Valley. And as we drive, we're trying to see if there's any locations. But the location we saw next to Mechora, very important thing to say there, was next to a road. So that sadly disqualifies the location because it creates more heat. You can also see the Jordan Valley is also very green. I actually served in the army in this area, so I know it goes this green. But more importantly to us, this gorgeous and relatively large field of barley is nowhere near Aviv. It is even the small cases that we found with good amounts of dough don't really have anything inside of them. I'm just thinking as I'm going through this because I want to make it as precise as possible. So we have some dough stage, mostly flowering, and a lot of empty. There's even yellow here that's dead, which means it dried up. You can see some of the yellow here on the ground. And I would say that even this, for us to say that there's anything even close to Aviv, you can't find sporadic cases of barley that's in dough stage. You have to find something much more like patches, like actual sections. So I would say clearly this is nowhere near Aviv, and this is the most advanced we've seen so far, which is beautiful and amazing, but not Aviv. And we're not surprised, but it is very important to always remember that you have to learn as you travel and try to understand what people did also in the ancient world. It's not enough just to say, I'm looking for Aviv. You have to try to understand the nature of the beast, I would say. But I think that this field is very, very substantial for us. Very important to remember these fields and to learn from them, to gather information every year. This is why we do the search. But I would say quite clearly there's no Aviv in this location. Okay, so this one surprised me a little bit. I was not expecting this field to still exist. But this is the mother lode. This is the field that has determined many things throughout the years. And the farmer here actually even grows barley sometimes. The only thing is that I just don't want to go too deep inside, but my colleague has inspected. And nothing here beyond the flower stage. So we have heads, we have flowering, what we've seen so far. Because this is someone's actually livelihood, only one of us ventured in. Someone actually smaller. For those who actually know me physically, I am not a small person. This field is really I would argue, the coup d'etat. It stretches all the way over there, and the problem is throughout the years, the farmer here has done a lot of different things. There was one year we didn't find any barley anywhere. We came here and we found barley and we found Aviv. And then there were other years that we came by and discovered he completely, because everything was either already harvested, and he might actually harvest this in a couple of weeks. You never know. I mean, people usually don't grow barley for the purpose of having barley flour. So this is very, very cool. Now, it's also very important for us because this is cultivated barley. This is barley he's going to be using. This is barley that he actually planted and has actually cultivated. So some of this is not wild barley. And what's next to me is wild barley. Okay, but then there's an entire section over there that that basically is setting rows and so on. So you can actually see it's harvested, and so it's something is going to harvest eventually. Many cases we would go up there, but from here I don't see there's really much anything there. But I hear back from my colleague when he gets back from that area. And also a little thing, one of the reasons I don't necessarily go into this field is because I am terrified of snakes, and I have had incidences in the past. So, and right now my right knee is hurting, so if I have to run or something, it won't be a good thing. But so far from what we've seen, flower stage, and we'll update exactly where we are in the written version of this report as well. But we are south of Bet She'an. Bet She'an is that way. There's behind me, down to the south, you can see cars coming. There's a checkpoint, and usually that's a checkpoint because the area of the Jordan Valley, certain sections are considered to be what's referred to as Area B through the Oslo Accords from '95, and you have to just explain who you are, and show your ID and so on. Usually, if you're an Israeli and you have a plausible explanation, they never do anything. And that's it. And now the police are going to ask me what I'm doing here, so that's going to be interesting. In any case, this is going to be fun. So we're one of the last locations in the Jordan Valley called Nachal Talkid. I always had issues with that name. The barley here is, it's all grass. But for me, this location is always just a beautiful place to come to. So I'm going to try to keep quiet and just enjoy the view. I mean, when you're here physically, you're going to get a better idea of the majesty of this place. It's gorgeous every time we come here. Every single time we come here, it's just beautiful. Imagine you're a person living in biblical times, traveling through one of the main roads. And you take a break and you just stop in a place like this. There's edible flowers. You pull out your food for the way. You spice your food with these flowers. And just sit there and look at the nature. It's just gorgeous. See the flowers blooming here as well, the red flowers. We saw many of them down south, but they bloom all over the country. Everywhere you go this time of year. When I was a child, there were like these songs about the different flowers that grow. I can't remember it, but there used to be a whole song about it. By the way, just an interesting thing is this used to be this myth that the dwellers of Qumran were isolated and so on, but this was a main road even back then. I hope I enjoyed this view. I'm not going to do the hike. Not too much for me for today. Maybe some other time. And I hope you enjoyed the overall tour.